goes off here. All right. Aloha, familia. This is a new one right here. So, haven't been live for a minute, fam. Welcome to the Re-Evolution podcast. I'm joined here by Daniel Eisenman, also known as the Freedom Catalyst. And yeah, we're going to record an episode right now, and you guys are going to be streaming, watching it. So if you're watching this now or later, be sure to share this out, tag your fam. We're going to get into some topics here. I want to give a quick shout out to the altar here. We have Saint Tupac, we have some amethyst, we got some really important texts. Mr. J.P. Sears, His Holiness. Namaste. Thank you.
And I just shared this on 2 pages in that short period of time. And based on the intention of what Kevin stated beforehand, which was something along the lines of upward spiraling consciousness, so that we're all actualizing our best possibilities now and forever.
That's right.
That's how I heard it. I shared it. So I would encourage everyone else to give what they want to get. And I'm feeling inspired, so I imagine this is going to be inspirational.
Oh, yeah.
How's your sound over there?
I'm sounding good. Can you hear me?
So now we're shifting over to this, and this is watching us.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Well, I'm happy we have some friends joining us.
We do. So, all right.
And when you can press that button, I'll let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it should say recording.
We need a clap too.
No, the clap is more, I was doing that for video.
Oh, the video.
Yeah,
okay.
I was syncing it to the video. But you could do that because you could sync it to this.
That's true, huh? So
Yeah.
I think I will do that.
Okay, awesome.
All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, we're live. Welcome to a very special broadcast of the Re-Evolution podcast. I'll be your host, Kevin Orosz, also known as Kevin Orosz. I'm joined here by, well, let me see how I'm going to do this intro. Let's see. An ally, mentor, catalyst, a social and alchemical reagent. That's my favorite one. Mr. Daniel Eisenman, also known as the Freedom Catalyst. Welcome, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been on a roll of being in that seat literally and metaphorically, including you on the launching the Break Your Normal podcast. You're the 8th episode. And it feels so refreshing to be on this side of the altar. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, on this side of the altered state. You know, it's an altar with an A and an E, because we're altering consciousness with words, which are small mouth noises modulating sound frequencies that convey meaning through symbols. And we're at an altar, which is a sacred space that's set up to induce freedom. That's kind of one of the big topics I want to go into here is the concept of freedom. And like, I guess, how do I want to frame this? Well, first off, I want to say that, you know, at the time of recording this, the first episode of my podcast will be you. It will be Daniel. And it will actually be the first Facebook Live video I did dual screen with anyone, which happened like February or March this year, like months ago.
All right, so I want to make sure I can keep track of what you're saying. You're launching your podcast as well.
Right.
And the first episode of that podcast is going to be me and you when we did Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And now this episode is going to be released later, but we're doing it live on Facebook before the first episode.
Before the first episode is released.
Man, talking about bending time and space. Hello.
Oh yeah. We're in some kind of inception wormhole here. But it's pretty funny because, you know, that first episode, I should speak it now. The title is How Dating is Just Like Making Money. You remember that one?
Oh yeah, and the name of this one, currently, you said it before, I would love to
This one is Live with the Freedom Catalyst, How to Rewild Your Inner Child.
Yeah, they're like the same thing with different names.
So for anyone who doesn't know, if that's even possible, if you're following me at this point, because Daniel's mythos and my mythos are intimately entwined at this point. Daniel is known as the Freedom Catalyst, and he's a co-founder of International Tribe Design, a retreat endeavor and culture building modality that I'm intimately tied up in. And he's the author of Breaking Normal, which is his book. And yeah, I guess let's just kind of start with terms here, because I want an upward spiral with you, but maybe because I think Freedom Catalyst came first, right, and then Breaking Normal came later. So I would love for you to like riff about like where you got that idea and what does it mean?
Okay, that's so cool you're asking. Since we have 3 different drafts of the book here, I was because Hal, my beer is on Hal Alrhod's Miracle Morning.
Yep, shout out to Hal.
He was on the Breaking Normal podcast a few days ago, and I wanted to ask him for his advice on scaling Breaking Normal, because the Miracle Morning has sold over 1 million copies.
Wow,
that's a big deal, major leagues. And the original title to the Breaking Normal book was probably going to be The Freedom Catalyst, and then to F-uncomfortable/funcomfortable, and then it became Breaking Normal. That was like the 3rd iteration. The Freedom Catalyst, I think that's a great description of what I do for people, what I do for my allies. Somehow, that's a very accurate label. I seem to catalyze freedom. I catalyze freedom of thought, which seems to be, everything else seems to be a manifestation and a reflection of someone's thought. So thought seems to be what I catalyze free thought to be in a more descriptory. And I've seen people become free around me continuously. Including you.
Including me. No, I definitely am a testimonial.
And I don't think I'm the cause. I don't think I'm the reason. I don't think I'm the reason that I watch you and countless others become free around me. But I seem to be there, so I'm imagining I'm some sort of freedom catalyst.
Right. And this is beautiful. The geek in me, the science freak, wants to define a catalyst in chemistry, which a catalyst is just a molecule, particle, a substance that when present speeds up a biological or chemical reaction. It speeds it up. That's like the textbook definition of a catalyst to my knowledge. And I can definitely say that there's something really wise about what you just said. It's not that you're directly acting on someone and being like, become more free, but your presence and your field and maybe your facilitation, if we're talking about an event, which is where I met Daniel actually, it was the Bulletproof Conference some years ago. There's something about your presence and maybe the way you show up with your language especially that definitely caused me to question my own freedom. Like, wait, what is this guy on? Like, how is he able to convey such topics? And actually what that did for me was turn the lens on myself. I'm like, oh wow, I can do the same thing. And then the question became like, why am I not? And what's holding me back?
Yeah. I think for me, I really believe in the power of prayer. And then it dawned on me that everything I'm saying, I'm praying. Everything I'm praying right now. And I think everyone's praying. And I think that almost anything anyone says is actually about themselves. And they're praying it.
Wow. Well, so we've already arrived at a very important thesis that I myself have adopted and tested in my reality that I want to offer to anyone listening. And that is everything you say is about you. And I mean that everything I say is about me. Because it's coming from me, right? So I'm the one at praying or enunciating it. And on a deeper like psychological level, and this like has endlessly revealed itself to me especially with clients, whatever that archetype is, someone who's like coming to me to transform, traverse some kind of territory. We, the pronouns a bit tricky here, but we want to talk about things we see in the world, and we want to see like, oh, when you do this or we do this. And I'm like, wait, but you mean when you do that? Like, that's like a little like flip. If you anytime you hear someone say you or we, especially if they're talking about a grandiose topic, and in your head, if you just do that little extra step of a translation, like if I just put I in every pronoun spot that they just spoke, it makes a lot more sense, right?
Yeah, that's to me keeping a safe distance from the virus of the cultural mind, also known as groupthink. And that's personal to me because my grandparents survived the Holocaust, and I'm all about heart sync over groupthink. So I have found a way to create safe boundaries for me with groupthink. And it also shows up in animals, like having a pit bull. It's whatever. There's a similar resonance to how I can interact with a wild animal and or a prey animal, and understand our boundaries. They're not seen physically. With also when someone unconsciously attempts to project a placebo onto me, that I can be like, no, water off a duck's back. I hear you, but that's not for me. And a lot of people will agree to something that's not for them unconsciously to fit in, which is also known as groupthink.
Wow. Okay, synchronicity here, because I was having a long conversation. My little brother actually just left earlier. Shout out to Dylan. He'll be on the podcast at some point. But we were talking, because we're both like big fans of literature. And so George Orwell, to my knowledge, helped propagate this term of groupthink in 1984. Really seminal novel for anyone who hasn't read it. It's actually pretty accurately, it was written in the 40s in World War II, but it describes our reality pretty well. And so there's groupthink, and then there's the individual. And there's a way in which they stand in opposition. And I don't mean like they're against one another, but it's hard to have one fully in place in your psychology, your language, your beliefs, your relationships, and manifest the other. And so what do I mean by that? Like, say you're in a group and everyone's like, so the new thing that's cool is we're going to jump off a bridge. And hopefully they're bungee jumping, but in the extreme example, right, it's like they're jumping to their death. Now, something I've heard you speak a lot, Daniel, about is the addiction and breaking the addiction to validation, right? Or the addiction to needing to be validated externally by a culture or tribe. And so I wonder, like, if you could just riff, like, what has been your experience encountering groupthink and how it synchronizes with this addiction to validation? Like, well, what's at the root of that in your mind?
I think it goes straight to the masculine and feminine, and it's the duality, it's the paradox, it's the walking the tightrope, it's finding the balance in both of those, it's surfing the wave. I made an Instagram video about this today when I was at the mall. Man, I was freaking out at the mall. I took a small amount of mushrooms that I barely could tell that I was on them today until I went to the mall and I was like, oh, gotta get out of here, go hug a tree. Like, whoa, what is this? It was like the Matrix maze, the maze of the Matrix. And I do both. And you know who says this so well, that it's so culturally understood, is Gary Vaynerchuk. He talks about like how he doesn't give a shit, and then he doesn't give a shit about what anyone thinks, and then he cares so deeply what everyone thinks.
Right.
So I think it's both. It's finding the like illuminating both sides of them and not getting attached to either, and more walking that balance between the divine masculine and the feminine and the paradox that life seems to be. So, man. Yeah, like the way it brings up also is there's the idea of the golden rule of like treat others like you want to be treated. But I've seen the way a lot of people treat themselves. I definitely don't want to be treated like that.
That's like that's the anti-golden rule way, isn't it? Right? The paradox, like, wow, because someone who's not following the golden rule and also like fully actualized in their independence, you wouldn't want to be treated that way. I think that anyone can, relate to that. There's people in your life you know right now that don't treat themselves in a way that's fit for you to be treated. There's another way to say that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that we're all one and we're all individuals at the same time, and something to do with that dragon biting its tail on your shoulder that's looking at me, or I'm looking at it.
Yeah, there's a great, I love that you brought up masculine and feminine, obviously something I'm very interested in and have put a lot of thought, word, and deed into really in the past 365 days especially. And I want to put some teeth to this and provide a little bit of a concept, and I think you'll resonate. This is beyond gender, right? This isn't just like genitalia and sex. This is energy types. Masculine is like it's ordering, pure conscious awareness, and it's order in a sense, like order as a grand principle. Where like I'm gonna order my reality and be creative, and that, you know, in order to like hold liquid in a glass, I need a boundary to hold it. And so if that liquid is your wealth, if that's your relationships, that's your mind body mastery. The masculine can create the container, whereas the feminine as a principle is more like everything that's changing. So like the ocean, the waves, the jungle. It's just constantly in flux. And so there's a way to think about what other people think as that. It's just like the masses are going to change their opinion pretty frequently.
I love this because this makes, I've never heard this before and I love it so much. So you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that the glass is the masculine, the glassculin.
The glassculin.
And the beer is the feminine, the beer women. And the beer is always changing. Whether I'm sipping on it, whether it's evaporating, whether it's fermenting more, and it's always changing. I'm literally looking at the bubbles. I've always thought that enlightenment is, it can be found in the bubbles on top of a beer. And right now it kind of looks like a dragon in a way. It could look like whatever I want it to. And the glass is seemingly staying the same.
Right.
Yeah, I resonate with it.
Yeah, this is like this is something we all encapsulate too. Like we have both principles, men and women, male and female bodies can do both. And let me offer another opinion, and this is true to me. The people I respect most, the people you may respect most, you look at them like a Gary Vee and you're like, man, that guy or that woman, like they're doing it. This person actually has a very strong masculine principle activated. Like their glassware is rock solid, so it can hold things really well.
I would say most of the time it looks like a crystal chalice.
Yes.
Let the chalice blaze.
Let the chalice blaze. Man, and okay, so this is a whole mind swarm. I want to go back to like terms here because we're gonna keep spiraling, and that's something I always trust you and I can do is like no matter where we are, we can spiral from there. That's I think a mark of a good dancer and a good conversationalist. No matter what step you're in, you can keep up. So I want to move on to the other moniker that you've kind of taken on, the slogan, and that is something about the inner child, which I think for me it was kind of bastardized in the spiritual community, the conscious community, because it's like, oh, let me just ask my inner child, and like there's like kind of this like comical aspect of it, but when you say rewild the inner child, when I look at the cover of your most, I think the one that I saw the most come up, right? The Breaking Normal with like, it's like a Pinocchio character. He's in a prison cell. You know, Pinocchio's nose grows when he lies. The key to unlock the cell is at the end of his elongated nose. And it's like rewild the inner child and set the truth free. Like, it's just, there's so many layers. And I'd love for you to riff on that.
Well, firstly, I want to honor our mutual friend Raj Lahoti, since he is who I would say is responsible for creating this. A fellow ally king with an inner child is pretty freaking wild. Yeah, rewild. Rewild is, once again, recognizing that I'm playing in the matrix. I'm playing in the prison. In a way, I'm choosing to play in the creative constraint of culture. I'm not an anarchist necessarily. Like I'm like, yeah, highways are good. Policemen, I love policemen, especially when they are integrous. So yeah, I realize I'm part of that system, and it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be me. So I can stay wild. I can remember my wild roots. I can remember that I am a crazy, wild animal that's capable of anything, potentially capable of destroying the whole planet that everyone lives on with enough thought force. So I want to rewild it. I want to make sure I am not a victim to the creative constraint that I've chosen, and to remember how wild I am. And the inner child, I think, is pure love, pure love. I watch my daughter. She's pure love. She wants to be loved. All she does is love. So that, I think to rewild my inner child is to like make sure I'm wildly in love with life, and I'm wildly loving the experience of being able to co-create this reality with so many different iterations of this divine essence that's in all of us. It's just all just such a dream. It's such a dream, and that's what I would say. Like, I'm not trying. The truth doesn't have to set me free. I'm free. The truth doesn't have to set me free. I'm free. So let's set the truth free. And I think I think your version of setting the truth free will be different than mine. And that's the beautiful paradox that we find ourselves in. And I think the more we do that, the closer we get to that key, which unlocks us from the jail within the creative constraint we've chosen. Did that get too crazy? Is that breaking normal enough?
No, you're nailing it. You're opening so many doors by what you just riffed on. And I mean, instantly to tie it into where we are right now, Austin, Texas, place near and dear to my heart. This is where I became a man, because I went to school here, went to university, and engraved on the main building at the University of Texas, which is downtown here in North Austin, is a quote, and I don't remember if it's Thomas Jefferson or if it's Jesus. Someone can fact check this, but it says,
There's Thomas Jesus.
Thomas Jesus.
Maybe it was Doubting Thomas of the Bible that doesn't exist.
The thought quickens.
Yeah, please go. I'm ready for this quote.
Well, this quote is epic, and it's extremely tied to this. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's it. Like, and for me, it was like the kind of mission statement behind a university on a pure level, beyond, corporate budgets and pro football contracts. Like, you will be in service to knowledge so you can know the truth. And once you know the truth, it makes you free. And so I think that's a very interesting concept, because setting the truth free, and then there's an aspect of the truth itself that sets you free. So it's like, it's kind of like that Ouroboros. Like, which is it, the chicken or the egg? Is it knowing truth that releases you from what I was hearing you say was the creative constraint of cultural conditioning and the matrix, which there's a paradoxical idea here, and this is actually in the early Christian thought. I won't find it in the Bible. This is in the Gnostic scriptures. But by accepting the oppression, quote unquote oppression of culture, you actually become free. Because when you're in opposition to it and you want to like go live off the grid and drink rainwater and eat bark, you're actually like creating more resistance for yourself.
What I hear is that's what is someone stoked to pay taxes, and a lot of them, because they're doing the system well.
I mean, wow. I guess if the taxes create roads, policemen, social services, and fast upload speed Wi-Fi, I might be more inclined to pay them.
And that they do. And other things that are highly controversial.
True. So, okay, so we have a frame now. I want to keep this caravan moving here intellectually. We have a frame. We established, that Daniel, whether it's stars, it's in your DNA, you seem to catalyze freedom wherever you go. And I definitely can attest to that most heightenedly in the event space, and at retreats or at these spaces that we've co-created where, the agreements in the container are speak the truth, do it with skill, have a lot of fun, and literally rewild your inner child, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. So we've established that. We've talked a little bit about the inner child, which I agree is a pure loving consciousness. Like when we were children, especially before age 7, if you really examine yourself, or if you look at a child, they are so full of love and curiosity for the world. And that's why no matter who you put a child in front of, their heart lights up because they can resonate with that. I've seen very kind of decrepit, depressed people in my life, and they come in contact with an infant or a small child, and they light up. The sparkle comes back to their eyes. I'm sure you've seen that a lot with Davina, right? Like, what's Davina's effect on people?
Well, I'm gonna once again tie this, just circle around with Raj. He was telling me this idea about, like, instead of babysitting, adult sitting. He's like, why would I pay someone to be with Seva That's his son's name. He's like, they should be paying me. That's how I heard. And I was like, he's like, Sam, Davina, are you kidding me? Like, Davina can adult sit people. And the effects are a magnetism, an undeniable attraction, an undeniable like softness and reality check. And a reflection. And some people get uncomfortable with it. Because sometimes Davina gets a little more scared of people. Sometimes she gets really, like, she reacts differently to different people. So, but she's not trying to hide it from anyone. Yeah.
That seems to be a key right there, is the idea of shame is something that's not naturally inborn in a human being. I really believe that. I believe that with a lot of animals too. That's a learned behavior. It's not inborn, and like that's a whole nother thought stream. But I want to move on here because I want to talk about the newest slogan that you've, and kind of the brand that, you know, in the title of your book, Breaking Normal. And there's a few things interesting to point out about this, and I want to quote our buddy Brandon Hawk. Shout out to Brando, Bird Dog, Hawk Flock.
Yeah, like he's also on the Breaking Room podcast. He sat right here, and then so did his son Austin, and here we are in Austin.
Oh man, the synchronicities are just strong here. But Brandon had a beautiful metaphor to describe you, and this was in Costa Rica, near the Arenal volcano at an event. And he's like, "Look, guys, you need something to understand about Daniel." He's like, "Daniel's the first guy through the wall, so he gets a little bloody." And you know, he's either kind of described himself. He's like, "I'm the open heart surgeon, all right. I'm here to do the fine tuning and bring you back to alignment." Daniel's the guy with the chainsaw that plows through the scar tissue and gets blood everywhere. And I remember like just being blown away by that. I was like, holy cow. I'd say that it is true of you. And you're most raw. For those of you who haven't experienced Daniel in person, he has a very powerful play shop exercise social experiment he likes to call Captain Obvious, which I've colloquially named the Trigger Shop. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that to give context, and then I want to go into Breaking Normal and what it means to you.
So yeah, the Captain Obvious is me just being relentless and pointing out the elephant in the room, being relentless, just going all in on the elephant in the room. And actually, if anyone's been watching the Breaking Normal news flashes, my next episode is the future that I'm remembering about it is with about circumcision being the elephant in the room of America. So it's like, yeah, I told you in the last, I'll probably call it the circumcision of consciousness. So look out for that one. So that's like, that'll be, these, actually the Breaking Normal news flashes are me being Captain Obvious, but with to my daughter, which is pure love, obviously to everybody. So it's actually being received in maybe a less triggering way than it is when I'm confronting the elephant in the room with a room full of adults.
Right. Which tells you a lot about how we process elephants, which the elephant in the room is maybe the thing with the most energy that has the least attention on it. Which is like, whoa, you do that at your own peril. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because in my experience, there's really good reasons you would avoid an elephant in the room. There's really good reasons, because if you confront it prematurely, it might actually be a little disastrous.
Exactly, and once again, that's something we spoke about last night. But elephants kill more humans than any other animal on the earth, from my understanding. And someone else can fact check that if they would like.
It kind of makes sense. It's the largest walking land animal, and those things they're such gentle, beautiful, mystical creatures. And like, if a bull elephant was in heat or upset, you know, there's no fiber of my being that's gonna get in the way of that creature. Like it's just silliness,
and that's why I think so many of the greatest thinkers have been assassinated.
Wow, there's some truth right there. So I want to zoom in on this title, Breaking Normal, because I've always been fascinated by it for two reasons. One, the normal state of consciousness. Like this just opens a whole other Pandora's box, or Pandora's gift bag. Why do we need to transcend normal consciousness? Why can't the normal be enlightening, blissful? Like, I think we can all agree, anyone in the quote unquote conscious community, if you're listening to this, I imagine you have realized that normal in the mainstream isn't something you'd want to aim for or strive for, in my opinion. So that's interesting. That normal shows up, right? And a norm, if you cut off the end of that word, a social norm comes into play. And then number 2 is that it has to be broken. So it's not like a massaging normal or transforming normal. We're straight up breaking it. So I'm curious, Daniel, like what that title has meant to you and maybe some of the origination, the core DNA of that.
Yeah, cool. So right off the bat, this is one of the original iterations of the book, and it says it's a blue pill exploding, and it even says the freedom catalyst, and it says a fun comfortable. So I included it all in the beginning. I didn't leave much to miss. This is much more mysterious, I think, the current iteration, but right now in this moment I'm thinking like the Big Bang. If there was no breaking normal, then there would be no thing. Mm-hmm. So I think breaking normal is metaphorical to the Big Bang in the sense that it disrupts. It's a disruptive, it's a penetrative, it's a polaris, energetic experience of evolution. I think it's what evolution. It's another way of saying evolution, basically. Yeah. So I think if we break normal, another word for normal is average, and like average sperm don't create new life.
Boom. What a great way to frame it, man. Okay, so this is a big concept. This is a big concept. I want to go one layer deeper into. If normal wasn't broken, or another way to say that, normal is like equilibrium. So equilibrium is like a solid state. So like this is like one of the core questions in philosophy, which I love. You brought up evolution. This is re-evolution, aka revolution, a rebellion against normal, in my own way. And I'm a big nerd and student of philosophy, psychology, and evolution itself. You already know that if you've been following me. But there's a way in which like breaking normal, the Big Bang, like the solid state had to be ruptured so there could be something rather than nothing. Because you see this in physics. Like if water is at a stable level, it'll just sit and stagnate and kind of pool, right? As soon as there's a gradient and maybe rocks to create a waterfall or an elevation, suddenly the water becomes dynamic and moves and creates all this life and erosion and pathways of energy. And so I want to take this to consciousness, because that is, beyond all the various things we do. Like you and I do a lot of different things, but I would say the thing we share in common is we're pioneers of consciousness on many layers. And so I'm curious of like, what is the normal state of consciousness mean to you? And then what has been your experience breaking that state through your various modalities, and what comes next? Like if we want to do a simple hero's journey here, like normal, call to adventure, like wait, maybe normal's not that good. The break, like so you enter the supernatural world, confront the shadow, fight the dragon, get the gold, and then the return. So the return to a new normal, like to frame it that way.
Cool. So I think that's already happening. That's happening right now. So it's fun to talk about what's happening. And I think normal would be unconsciously accepting cultural conditioning as the guiding force in someone's life.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Also known as addiction to approval. Yeah. Which is cool, because I also think this iteration could be like breaking Prozac.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Yeah, and the blue pill from the Matrix.
Yeah.
And the normal route for getting everything. And then the call to action is like, whoa, something that wants to live through me that someone didn't tell me about wants to be expressed. Oh. It's not going to look like, it's not going to fit into the approval prescription. People are going to get disruptive. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. I'm not going to know what to think. It's going to feel a lot. I used to call it being scared. I used to call it being nervous. I'm going to feel it all. So that,
Like the idea that there may be a cave with a dragon with gold. Would you go if you knew there was $1 billion of gold right in a hole in the ground over there, but there's a dragon in it? Would you go to see it?
I have to.
So that's the breaking, I guess. That's the call to adventure. And then what's the return to?
The return, like finding a new equilibrium.
Oh yeah, the return is like when I'm saying the return, it's like, oh, there is a dragon. Oh my gosh, like the dragon's crazy. It's so unpredictable, and that's what it makes it so fun to interact with. That makes it was all worth it. It wasn't about the gold. The gold is what seduced me into there, and I realized it wasn't even that was fun. That's the cherry on top, but it was more about the dance with the dragon that mattered. So let's all dance with our dragons together right now.
Wow.
So we're all riding a bunch of dragons. So we're pretty, so the next step is riding or flying with our dragons, also known as electric cars.
Also known as the future resource-based economy. Okay, so there's so many layers here. Like in the future, I'm going to be doing whole episodes on mega breakdowns of my riffs on Campbell, Young, and the archetypes. But this is super potent, and I've literally experienced this. Like what's funny is a lot of these events are 3-day events, so you show up like terrified because you're like, wait, why the fuck did I show up here? I don't know anyone. Like especially for me, like we were talking about BC earlier, which is the first tribe design I attended. It's up on the Sunshine Coast in Canada, and like that was my first event like that. I've been at conferences, masterminds, yoga retreats, etc., but this was kind of a new experience for me. I definitely showed up like a hero in the first chapter of a story. A little shaky, a little bit like, ooh, these people gonna fit into my worldview? Are they gonna think I'm cool? Like, what am I doing here? Oh, and then like the first crossing the threshold from like chaos to order, or order to chaos rather, or maybe the other way, depending on how you're living. The dragon appeared, which the dragon for me forms many different ways. It's like the collection of all my parents, teachers, priests, society, politicians' wants and desires for me and how I should enact my life, and or all my elephants in the room combined into one big creature. So the parts of myself I was ignorant in: my sexuality, my emotionality, my physicality, my psychology, and it confronts you. I think the big thing you said there is that the gold tempts us into confronting the dragon. And what is that in human consciousness? That is a fascinating idea.
Yeah, I think it's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's probably what the winning sperm is going for the most out of all the other allies.
Whoa.
I don't know. Gotta go. I'm going first too. The one that goes to might get the bloodiest that goes to the wall first. And it is bloody. Birthing is bloody.
Wow. Well, let's spend some time on that, because this is something that I've had the privilege to watch you transform in as a creative individual, facilitator, and as a man. Because a big thing I'm emerging into and very fascinated by is men's work and the healing, activation, and transformation of the masculine archetype in men, male bodies specifically. And I've seen you, because when I met you, you were what I would have called a gunslinger. So you were like, when I met you in BC, and even before that, the Bulletproof Conference, you were very fast talking, very like physical, like quick-witted. I was a little intimidated because I saw myself that way, and I perceived you to have a few qualities I didn't have, and I was like, whoa, this guy's quick. He's quick on the trigger, whatever that means, linguistically. And then soon after that first retreat is when Deanna conceived. And so I've kind of seen your journey as a father and getting Oriya and now Davina and having a lot of feminine energy around you. And I think you're maybe one of the most expert users of the sperm and egg metaphor I've seen. Which is such a great metaphor, by the way. Like, no matter who wins, we all win because the genome wins. And the sperm that has the most desire for the light in the tunnel is the one that, gets the gold. So, yeah, what is fatherhood done in the context of what we've been talking about? Hero's journey, breaking normal, going on this adventure. Fatherhood's been a whole nother quest for you. And I'm curious, maybe extract a few gold nuggets from that treasure hoard.
It's big for me. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so watching Davina being birthed was like me dying. I died at that point and became a new person when I saw. So she was given birth in our living room, and right next door. Y'all were living next door when that happened, right?
Yeah,
You're right there. I wonder what you experienced from that.
The dreams I probably had that night.
Man, yeah, it was a big night, and I got to feel it all. It was the same thing, like the hunting thing. It was like, was it fun? Yeah, it was fun, but it was much more than fun. I don't know if I can describe it as one emotion. I experienced so much. And yeah, I think that is convicting to the cycle of life that we find ourselves in, and life and death and rebirth and whatever that means to anyone. But there's a cyclical nature that's happening, seeming for everything. And yeah, it's super convicting. And then it's convicting to the choice that I can choose. I have the choice to be the best I can be right now, all the time, no matter the circumstances.
Wow.
Yeah.
So specifically, I gotta ask, because I've seen this evolution too. How has like fathering Davina and like being a father and owning that archetype, how has it changed your creative process? Because you literally created a child physically, and you're a creator of a lot of content and powerful ideas. So how did those intersect?
Yeah, like once again, like the conviction that Davina, I look at Davina as pure love, which also includes being a genius. And I'm like, oh, that means I am that too. That I'm pure love and I'm a genius. And this whole thing, like, there's so many people that reference Davina as like, like them, like they, like their kids, like, oh, the children, like this is how babies are, or children are, or kids are. And I'm like, I'm a child too. And thank you for reminding me. And you're right, I don't have to be a victim to culture, and I can express what I am. I can express what I am without needing your permission. Maybe that's what'll make me the most attractive, not only to other people, but to myself. It'll make me the most alignment myself. It'll make me the most attractive to myself, the most like, yeah, magnetic and momentum and magnificent. And yeah, she reminds me of it. We are all so blessed. We are all so blessed, no matter what anyone's going through. And because we have the choice to do the best we can with what's happening right now. We're choosing how we're perceiving whatever's happening for us. And I think I keep choosing faith. I keep choosing remembering. I trust remembering that I can make the best choice now, forever, and it only gets better. And even if I doubt it, that's just another form of faith, and keep moving forward. And she reminds me to do that. She just does it naturally. She doesn't get, like, she'll go from crying to laughing in like seconds. Like, I thought she was just done. Like, she's gonna be sad for days. Like, oh, wow, that looks really sad. And then like 10 seconds later, she's like blissful. And I'm like, oh yeah. Maybe that extended duration is because I'm not fully expressing it. It's like power and force. Power is like a force over an extended period of time, I think. So we can just fully force it. And I think that's what I imagine a lot of the work you've been doing with bioenergetics and the dynamic meditations is about.
Right.
Because she'll, I don't know if you heard her last night, but around 2 or 4 a.m. or maybe both, just like full screams in my ear. Full screams. Wow. And then like a few seconds later, she's like sleeping. I'm like, man, thanks for, I'm going back into the hypnagogic state now.
Yeah, no, this is important. I love that you linked it up to bioenergetics. This is something I've been deeply involved in. You know, shout out to Elliot Holst, Wilhelm Reich, these Osho. It's full expression without any of the limiters. Like, is it okay to cry this hard? Is it okay to scream this loud? Like, am I gonna, no. Like a baby, you go all in, and what you find, it's almost supernatural, but it's the least supernatural because you can experience it yourself in your body right now if you choose to. When you go all in, it completes. And like, there's no residue, there's no guilt, shame, blame. Like the emotion or the feeling or the energy, it fully completes in a full expression. And there's like healing there. Like after you get past the end of that, and I see this, I've seen Davina like bawling into bliss, where she's like playing and like curious again. And the opposite, like completely curious and dialed in, and then like for no apparent reason, just like screaming, crying. It's like, what in the adult mind questions that? And maybe this is speaking to this cultural hypnosis. We've been circumambulating this whole conversation, which I think is fascinating. We can learn a lot from our children. There's something I read, I don't know if it was ancient Egyptian, Greek, Hellenic, some ancient cultures, like they look at children as gurus.
That's how I do it. So whatever ancient culture that is, that's it. Davina is a master. I'm like, man, it's so inspiring every day, every moment. And that's a lot. That can bring up a lot. Yeah, I would say when she was being birthed, that was like I felt like more guilty than I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
In a way. Just like anything, I in particular, like there's this meaning like the birthing is going to be the best moment of someone's life, and it is, but it's not. It's the funnest moment, and for me it was the guiltiest moment. It was all the moments. It was like every moment, every moment amplified, always and ever. And I guess, yeah, I think that's probably what happens in birthing and deathing. It's like it's all revealed. It's that, I guess, there's going through the veil, and yeah.
There's so much energy there. Like I can even feel it in my body as you speak. Because I'll speak this intention to the universe and the ethers. I want to be a father. I know I'll be a good father. I know I want to be a mentor to sons and daughters. And it fucking scares me. Like hearing you speak about it in the way you're speaking, I can just intimate, just barely, what you must have experienced watching your wife give birth.
Yeah, and part of it, I can't tell if I'm just obsessed with making sure I'm free of guilt and like create guilt to be free of it. But part of it was a long process. Like I had a ritual of like waking up early and going to sleep late, and then I realized like at a certain point at night, and for some reason I think you can resonate with this. I think it was still late at night and it wasn't clear what's happening. I'd already had so many breakthroughs in coaching with the midwives. The midwives were wanting to intervene in a way with like breaking her water, and I've done all the studies that if they intervene and the water's broken, then she'll just be much more adept to do any other kind of intervention. And I had been emotionally roller coaster every day. And at one point I realized like, man, I want to I don't know what to do anymore. Like there's all these decisions being made and I'm feeling foggy. So I like smoked some cannabis tobacco and drank a beer. And then all of a sudden everything, like it was crunch time and I happened and the birthing was happening. And I realized like, I felt convicted about that. Like, wow, even like, was I needing this? And what does that mean? Why do I care? It works. It worked and it works. And I had the guilt about rituals around substances or plants, which are they allies or enemies or both? That was one thing immediately, but then there was just an overall feeling like this, undescribable. And the similar thing I can relate it to is what I was telling you about earlier is I recently went hunting for the first time, and that's another one that felt very similar. And which is crazy and paradoxical because it was like one new life was being birthed and the other one life was being taken. And like how I felt when new life was being birthed, I was dying, and by me taking this life that was dying, I was becoming a new life. Like I became a new person.
Right.
So the cyclical nature is pretty convicting, in my opinion, for me.
Right.
And by staying curious about it, I feel like I can dance with it better. I can ride the dragon rather than if I'm convicted about it, then I'm like, I could get swallowed by the dragon or I might kill the dragon and then find out if I chop its head off, it has 7 more growing.
Right. I love the dragon metaphor, how present it is. And yeah, I feel like there's very deep codes being transmitted right now, and I want to hold space and honor that the mysteries of birth and death are something we all experience, regardless of life circumstance. We're all born and we're all going to die. And there's great wisdom available there. And, I, for one, want to speak out. I'm just going to sling some positive spells here, some positive prayers. I don't want people to avoid birth or death processes, and I don't want to avoid them either. This is where we have birth doulas. I believe there should be more death doulas.
But actually, so our birth doula was chosen very on purpose, and she has seen 1,000 births.
Wow.
Ocean Midwives in San Diego, and Andrea is her name, and she's kind of stopping doing that to become a death doula.
Wow, so she's moving on to the other side of the spiral.
Yeah.
Wow. Something there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's always happening. The paradox is it's literally happening on the cellular physical level. I think,
now.
Yeah, like there's, I don't know how many millions or thousands of cells are dying since this podcast, and how millions or thousands are being reborn.
Right.
And what it takes to realize that, some concentration, the power of thought. It seems, for the people that realize that and then act that way, and realize that we always have a blank slate, and the Etch-a-Sketch taught us from the beginning that we can always shake it up and restart. We have our hands on the dials to create a new picture of our reality, but we can also always shake it up and have a blank slate. I think that's happening, and it's just fun to play hide and seek, and to sometimes, I think it's fun for a lot of people to play hide and seek and to realize that and forget it, and then do it again, over and over again, until it seems like an upward spiral. Yeah.
There's an aspect to what you're saying. I've thought
like
a lot
DNA,
about this.
It looks like a DNA.
It's the caduceus helix structure that both this conversation and life itself is taking. Something you just said is really powerful. Why does consciousness like to play hide and seek? I've often thought about this. So I think some of the fondest memories we might all share if you were raised in Western culture is Christmas morning. Tearing through a new present and smelling that cellophane or plastic and opening it up to reveal a toy or video game or pony or whatever the fuck it was. There's an excitement, an explosive release of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, oxytocin on a physiological level, but on a spiritual level, I would even go as far. There's this feeling of ecstasis or excitement and surprise that is so powerful. And if I want to translate that into consciousness, this is why maybe we play hide and seek. And maybe why we pretend that we don't understand the dragon, or we pretend that we, I don't get it, and then when we do get it, we get so much energy from that. That might be the fuel behind the upward spiral.
Yeah, that's that free energy.
Free energy, wow.
It's that free energy, because we're magnets too.
Wow. Yeah. That's a big thought. It's a big thought. I like that one though. That's something I think a lot about, because I play that game with myself. Even becoming conscious that I play the game, I still play it at an even more advanced level where I forget that I'm playing it, which I'm very thankful for. I'm grateful for that. Very grateful.
Yeah, there's this a fable or a story that someone finally, like a king of sorts, someone finally gets and it might be from someone told me that maybe they heard from Alan Watts, which makes sense. The story goes as a king got the magic button to push. If he could push the button, and he or she could push the button, and it'd be a queen, and anything could appear at any time, create whatever reality it wants to create. And eventually, that was so boring that the king just started choosing mystery all the time. And it seems strikingly synonymous to the Amazon drone, push this button, get this delivered to your doorstep culture that's going on, and how so many people are getting off on that, and how so many people are getting off on creating mysteries. So I like to balance. I appreciate Amazon and what's happening with the internet and technology. It's amazing. And I also appreciate the process of when things don't work out the way I thought they were going to, and trust that's because they're going to work out better than I had already imagined.
Yeah, that's a deep trust in reality and the process itself, fam. That I have a lot of evidence for in my life. So Daniel, before we part here, I feel like we would be amiss if we didn't address the event, the namesake, the concept, the DNA, which I'm a part of. I think we were talking the other night that I think a lot of events and entrepreneurs and people that have their pulse on the collective evolution, whatever that is, are doing and the brand you've been a part of that you co-founded, which is Tribe Design. And so I want to toss a few hot memes in here for y'all, fam. One is Dunbar's number. British anthropologist, primate psychologist, I believe. You can look up the name. One of them's name is Dunbar, obviously. He found that in primate troops and in the wild, between 150 and 200 primates, aka humans, makes the best tribal structure where you can intimately maintain an emotional bond with every member of that group and still maintain a community.
So like they can maintain heart sync regardless of resorting to groupthink.
Bingo.
Also in this culture of myth.
Bingo. And this is important because when you look at America, right, we're like 300 million plus. I don't know how big we are. When you look at the world, we're at 7 billion. I invite anyone to really consider the concentric circles of your social reality. I want to frame this up before I get your take on this epic endeavor that we've both been a part of. So there's you, right? And then, as I move the altar, and then there's like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And this number actually I've heard from our friend Julian, who's part of Conscious Thought Revolution. He actually says number 8 is magic. So between 5 and 8 is your inner circle. So this is friends, lovers, parents, best friends. You're most like those people, and actually statistically, based on studies that someone did, your finance, your marital status, your social status, and your physique, even your mind-body health, are dependent on the average of those people. It's pretty trippy to think about. So that's your inner circle. And then you have maybe 20 people that form the first degree. If you're the 7 degrees of separation, they're the first degree, so they're really important. And then after that, it varies for everyone, but let's say it spirals out to about 150 people. This is Dunbar's number. This is in the brain itself, physiological, no woo-woo. This is studied. And I think through a lot of empirical evidence, you and I have experienced this at events, at conferences, at masterminds, at festivals, etc. And this forms some of the idea behind international tribe design, aka tribe design, which is where we formed our real relationship, and what you are still in the process of now. So I wonder where that takes you, and if you want to riff on it.
Yeah, that's tribe design is it's somewhere between like a hybrid upgrade of a festival and a retreat of experiencing designing the strongest tribe as fast as possible with 150 people or less. That was in the original ethos. We've toyed with numbers, right? The original retreat in Kauai was approaching 100. And for 3 to 4 nights, we've found 55 or so to be a really good number. And that's the idea is that each individual, it's almost like a holographic or holotropic experience in the sense that each individual may feel more known from this group of people than they've ever felt from any group of people. And they may feel more known to themselves than they've ever felt. So everything gets illuminated. And it's not a spectator sport. It's not like 5 people are speaking on stage every day and everyone's just like watching and feeling inspired. There is some of that element in a way. It's not instead of a stage, maybe like a circle in the woods or on the beach. But it's more about everyone getting the most like congruent and coherent, unified, synergistic state possible, also known as heart sync, as like we're approaching Mount Everest of consciousness. So are we ready? Is this group ready to like face whatever dragons we may see for the search for this elusive gold? And we address all those things that come up along the way, and that seems to be very enlightening for me. Like how to it helps me get along with myself better. It helps me get along with my family better. It helps me get along with my coworkers, like my people I work with, and friends and new people. Like I think I've taken on some sort of essence where I can design a tribe wherever I go because I've become so sensitive to the subtle dynamics of group flow state and heart sync versus like culture and group think. Culture is very, I would say, much more subduing than a tribe, and it's probably because a culture is a lot about how can we control large amounts of people to follow these rules to keep order. And I think that their Dunbar's number has something to do with that. That maybe if you're trying to control over 150 people, that maybe that's where culture, myth, and rules, control rather than coherence comes in. And yeah, well, I'm ready to push the edge. We've pushed all kinds of. We're training more and more people to become facilitators. So it's like the people that really understand they're going on behind the scenes is growing, and then that way new attendees just like getting that vibration real quick. And each event seems to be getting better and better. So I'm excited about the next one on the Big Island.
Yeah.
I think we have about 55 spots. So.
Word. This is big stuff, y'all. This is big stuff. You just said something really profound I never thought about, and that's like culture inherently is restrictive because it needs to subdue, and I'm going to use a Freudian term, the collective libido of 150 plus people, which if we're talking about wild people, that's a lot of energy.
And why not start at the penis with circumcision, if that was the goal?
Full circle. Whoa. And unfortunately in Africa, they do some genital mutilation of women as well. So.
Yep, and I think before that was also happening in other places too.
Right. Whoa, fam. Big memes coming your way. Big memetics. Strong memetic frequencies are being broadcast right now. So let's assume this is true. You can disagree. I invite anyone listening, please send me the articles, the peer-reviewed studies. I want to learn. I'm a scientist and a mystic. I think both pathways are valid. They meet at the middle of the caduceus. But check this out. Like, say it is true. Say 150 or less people can maintain heart coherence without the need to subdue their energy via culture. I'm going to follow this meme. So that means we're not being restricted. We're actually being invited to magnify the intensity of our energy. Assuming that 150 can find a stable state that is a win-win-win. So I win, you win, and the tribe wins. It's important to have all three wins, not just a win-win. I want to go to Winfinity.
Yeah, Holy Trinity.
Bingo. The Holy Trinity of Winfinity. This is a meme that came out last night. It was hot on the podcast. Assuming that can happen, like this has been described by all religions and cultures. And I'll just use the one I know you and I share on some level, which is Christianity. This is heaven on earth. If we could hold the Winfinity, which is I win, so all my needs and wants are met. You win, so the other person I'm interacting with, all their wants and needs are met. And this 150 heart coherence primate tribe can have all their needs and wants met in an abundance paradigm. That to me is synonymous with heaven on earth. Like I can't imagine something better that's physical and tangible. And so that to me seems like a very worthy goal and a very savvy social experiment.
Yeah, and it's cool that you say that, and that's your takeaway from this, because the question I continually ask myself that I'm a little uncomfortable with is like, how do I know this is not heaven?
Whoa. I guess I had some neurons grow when you said that. In my heart, though, there's neural tissue in your heart. Whoa. Okay. I'm gonna pull in the snap here. I'm gonna not terminate, but I'm gonna tighten this spiral, this gyroscope of memes, into something resembling some closure here, because Daniel and I have been riffing for what feels like multiple hours, but
it says a 101. I like it.
101. Wow. Look at that. I love how time's an illusion, but also seems to keep track of memes and reality.
I think when you said that, I think it literally said 0010133. And then one is into numerology.
Man, some of my favorite numbers. So to recap, we went through some pretty wild territory here, as I knew we would with Daniel. Daniel is one of my favorite memetic slingers and architects of language. We talked about freedom, catalysis. We talked about breaking normal. Talk about the inner child and how to rewild to build better tribes and therefore a better culture that actually defies the subduing culture we may find ourselves in. So, man, this is some hot stuff, hot words. It's always fun traversing with you, Daniel. Any last minute invitations you have? You mentioned the Big Island. This episode will launch before that, which I believe is in January. So do you want to say some final closing thoughts?
I mean, I love remembering the future of a lot of people listening to this podcast. getting Breaking Normal on Audible in particular, and like taking a long hike through the woods or getting a massage. I feel like that's what catalyzed me to speak it into existence was going on long hikes in nature that increased my health and vitality and robustness. And it was like flying on a dragon, and or just super relaxing and getting in like a zen-in massage space and seeing what came through me. So yeah, to listen to the Breaking Normal on Audible and send me a screenshot of their review, and let's celebrate with a call. I love like talking to people that got lit up from the same ideas of Breaking Normal, because that lights me up too. And that can be through Facebook or Instagram, and breakingnormal.com is a good place to check in to see what's relevant on the radar.
There you have it. Find Daniel's book. It's pretty next level. I haven't read it cover to cover, but I feel like I've read it just by reading excerpts multiple times. Some powerful stuff. It's come from over 10 years of his retreat experiences, workshop facilitations, and personal lifestyle science experiments, which I would say he's done a lot of cultural experiments, social experiments. You'll get a lot out of it, especially if you've never been to an event. This might be your portal into one.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of testimonies of people feeling like they were crying or they were like in the event, like they were empathizing with the experience of what was being transmitted through the book. So that's also a cool affirmation for me, and I'm excited to see if that's true for you who's listening. It takes some inspired action right now.
There you have it, fam. So first episode of the podcast is Daniel. This is another episode with Daniel. There's infinite territory we could traverse, good sir. I appreciate you for catalyzing my consciousness, whether it was you or the force that moves you. It truly has been an honor to live, create, and share some life together. So here we are once again.
To be continued. Thank you. It's very mutual and beyond words.
Ooh.
Wee.
Come on now. Bump my face. Oh man. Let's see if this is still going.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I wonder. Oh, it's still going.
Oh, nice.
Well, family, appreciate you. We're gonna sign off from here as well.
Give it a share if you care. I'm curious to see how it lands on the collective culture, to see if it actually upgrades it. I remember it does.